Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it comes from a narration of a message that I received. The message reads like this. Hello, Brother Nash, how are you? Can you please post my own story as hidden identity? My brother, I grew up in a very big family. So in this family, my mom, she was also impregnated by my own father. My father used to have a lot of taxis there in Kwekwe, but he was making sure that all of the women that he was sleeping with, once he would have impregnated any woman, then he would take this woman back at the village where all of his children were staying, including me. Then after that woman that he would have impregnated would have given birth, that is when my father will dump that woman or will start dating another woman. That is exactly what happened to my own mother. When my father impregnated my mother, he lied to her that she was the woman whom he wanted to marry. When my mother arrived back at the village, that was when she found out that my father was already a married man. My father, he had his first wife who didn't have any child at all. She could not conceive. Even when she died, she didn't have any children at all. So she was a bitter woman, and she was always angry because God had not given her any children at all. But at the same time, I suspect that when my father started making his money, I think that he went to this traditional healer. These are just suspicions, my brother. I actually do not have real evidence apart from the fact that when my father passed away, on the day that we buried him, all of his taxis, the ones that had traveled from Kwekwe, coming to the village, carrying people from church as well as some of his friends, those taxis, my brother, they could not start when we were at the graveyard. It was only after the elderly people from our family started speaking with him, and we had already buried him, then they knelt down close to his grave and they said that you have already died. Can you release your taxis so that they can start working? Look at this big family that you have, because in our family we are 23. He had 23 kids. So the elderly people in the village, they spoke with the spirit of my father. Then those taxis, they started working again. And then we came from the graveyard and we came back to the village where we were staying. But my brother, this taxis, they didn't work for a very long time. Any taxi that would have broken down, no mechanic will be able to repair it. And maybe that is the reason as to why a lot of people said that when my father died, he died with all of his wealth, because his wealth was not wealth whereby it could be transferred to the next generation. He had done these rituals for himself so that he can enjoy, and after that his generation can suffer. But apart from that, we do not have any evidence at all. As for my father's first wife, she was the one who was taking care of us, because my father, after he would have lied to a woman claiming that he wants to marry that woman, when she would have arrived at the village, she will find out that my father is already a married man, and my father would refuse to go and sleep with that woman until she would have left the village. All of these problems, they will start once the woman would have given birth. That is the same thing that happened to my own mother. And when my mother returned back to her people, she then died. She mysteriously died. And I was told that when my mother was lying at Mpilo Hospital, she kept on mentioning the name of my father, saying that my father was the one. If she had not met my father, she was still going to live, but my father was the one. So she could not confess as to why she kept on saying that my father was the one who was causing her to be sick like this. On the day, they said that when she tried to tell one of her sisters, it was like there was something that was blocking her voice. Then she passed away. And for this reason, my mother's relatives, they hated me. They hated me a lot, because whenever they would see me, they would be reminded of my own father, because I am always told that I looked exactly like my own father. As my father, he died when we were still very young, and the business started crumbling to the ground. We lost all of his livestock that he had left behind. But I still remember that when my father was still alive, life was really great. We had anything that we wanted, even though we were staying in the villages. We even had television, we even had electricity, because my father was quite a wealthy man. But when he died, everything just started disappearing. Now the story that I want to share with you, it is about this other cousin brother of mine. This cousin brother of mine, when we were still young, we were almost like twins, because at the time, just after my mother had been impregnated by my father, then his own mother was also impregnated by my father. So after my mother had came to the village and given birth, when she left, her own mother also came. And when she came, she was holding him. So we were almost like born 1 month after the other. So we were like twins. We grew up, we were really good friends. Everywhere he was at, I was always with him. We were really good brothers. But with time, we started dating the same girl, and this girl, she was actually lying to him, and she was also lying to me. So each and every time, whenever I would see this girl with my girlfriend, I would think that maybe there is something that they are discussing, because this girl, whenever I was with her, she kept on telling me that I was not supposed to tell my brother that we were dating, because he wanted us to be a secret. She was afraid that her father was going to beat her up. You know, when you are still growing, you do not actually understand the workings of the world. So this girl, she was actually lying to the both of us, but she then chose my brother over me, because my brother was quite a smart man. And my brother, when I found, she eventually then chose my own brother over me, and that was really painful. The pain was just too much. For a moment, I left the village and I came to Kwekwe, whereby I started working at the taxi rank, but life was just difficult. My brother and his wife, who was my ex-girlfriend, they had a child. After they had a child, then this brother of mine, that was when I heard that he had left the country. At first, he went to Botswana. From there on, I heard that he was in South Africa. And when he was there, that was when he found his luck. My brother, I don't know what exactly happened to him, but all of a sudden, we heard that he was working for this other company. What they were doing was that they were actually making, you know, like the aeroplanes, making the covers for the seats on the aeroplane. So he was earning a lot of money at that time when I used the charms on him. Before I knew it, I heard that he was now staying with his wife, my ex-girlfriend. This was a lot of pain. It was bringing a lot of pain in my heart. He then spoke with me and he said, "Dear brother, I want you to come and join me here in South Africa." I then went and I joined with him in South Africa. Whilst I was there, simply because I had dated his wife, he was very suspicious of me. Like, he actually loved me as a brother, but the moment that we started staying together, he would wake up and get into his car and go to work. He always felt as if I was going to do something with his wife. Yes, I loved my ex-girlfriend. She was really beautiful. I loved my ex-girlfriend because she is quite a beautiful woman. But my brother, at that time, I had so much respect for their marriage. I was not even thinking of anything. Each and every time when he would leave me with his wife, when he would return back from work in their bedroom, I would actually hear them quarreling over and over again. One day, when he had gone to work, I then sat down with his wife and I said, "What is going on?" She told me that I once told him to look for an accommodation for you, for another room, so that you can stay somewhere, because he is not comfortable, but he does not want to show you that he is not comfortable. So when he returned back from work, I told him that this is what I had spoken with his wife, and this is what, when he returned back from work, I told him that I knew that he was not comfortable and it was okay. I was actually willing to find a place to stay, just that I was having troubles with finding a job. My brother, what he did was that he then said, "If you are comfortable not to stay at my house, that is fine." He then got into his car. When he came back, he said, "Take your bag." He didn't even tell me where we were going to. We then went to this location, and I was now staying with this other man, and the room was just too small. That man also was not nice at me because he kept on saying that I had invaded his privacy. That man, he actually had an addiction of watching those movies, adult movies, then relieving himself. He used to do this whenever you would think that I am fast asleep. So it was not a nice thing. I then said, let me return back home. Then I returned back home, but the pain was just there in my heart. When I returned back home, because of suffering, I used to go around visiting some traditional healers a lot because I wanted to be rich like my father. That was when I thought of bringing my brother to the same level that I am at, the same level of poverty. And yes, I managed to bring him down. I spoke with this other traditional healer about this issue. He then gave me this other doll. It was a wooden doll. He told me that this wooden doll, what I had to do was that I had to ask my brother for some money, and if he was going to give me this money physically, then it was going to be okay. He said that once he has given you money physically, yes, he can send it via the phone from South Africa to you, but we want something that is out of his pocket, like physically. Then it happened that there was someone who had died in the family. Our auntie, she had passed away. When our auntie came, we were looking up to my brother, my young brother who was there in South Africa. He came, he was the one who did everything at the funeral. So whilst we were running around, I was always with him since, when you are working at the taxi rank, people just believe that you know everything about everything. So when we were in Kwekwe just running around, I was with him. I then asked him for some money and I said, I'm really broke, just give me something. He then gave me money. He said that this money I'm going to give you, but when I am back in South Africa, I'm going to try to make a plan for you so that you can do something with your life. He gave me $16 and I took the money and I just kept it aside. Throughout the funeral, whenever you would give me some money, I'll place it aside. By the time that he had returned back to South Africa, when I went back to that traditional healer, I had $30 that he had given me. I gave that money to that traditional healer, and that traditional healer, he said that he was going to sell that wooden idol to me for $5. So I was left with $25. After he had given me the $25, I then tied those US dollars around that wooden idol. He then said, when you have arrived back home, if it be in the village, the better. I want you to go on your father's grave, speak with your father, tell him that his own son is not supposed to be where he is. He is supposed to return back. He is supposed to return back in the village so that he can look after his grave. That is how much poor you want him to become, to be someone who will be just looking after his own father's grave, meaning that he will never be allowed to leave the village, because if he leaves the village, I said to my father, if you allow him to leave the village after you have brought him back to the village, who is going to look after your grave? I want him to come to your grave each and every day, or to pass through your grave each and every day, going to that house, because in that direction where I was pointing, there's this old lady. She brews that traditional beer that we call the 7-day traditional beer. I said each and every day, I want him to make a trip up and down. In the morning, he goes to that woman there, and when he's passing through your grave, I want him to check out if there are any grass, if there is any grass that is growing on your grave, so that he can look after your grave. Bring him back from South Africa. My brother, it happened that one of our brothers, he then fell sick. He fell sick, my brother, and he was the first one who came here. When he came here, he left his wife, and when he came here, that was the end of it. He could not return back to South Africa. He's there in the village. As for the woman, she even sleeps with the village headman. That is the story that I had, so that she can just be included in the, those books whereby when the ruling political party wants to donate something in the village, there are names that are written by the village headman. So to be included on that list, the story that I had was that she had to sleep with the village headman. That is how much poor he is right now. Each and every day he goes on that trip. He goes and he drinks the traditional beer. He comes back. He goes, he comes back. And each and every day when he's passing through our father's grave, he checks if there is any grass or anything growing so that our father's grave can always be kept clean. I am talking about a man who used to earn a lot of money there in South Africa, working for that company that was making that leather that they place on the seats of the aeroplanes. But now he is just stuck in the village. The spirit of my father does not even allow him to leave the village. In the village you will stay. In the village you will die. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by our dear brother. We were saying that he just works as a rank marshal, and this is his confession. Yo,